Warning. This is not a safe space. Leave your bullshit and feelings at the door.
This week we're going to talk about a couple of hot topic issues relating to the shooting in California. We're going to talk about PTSD and guns.
It's time for the most raw and unfiltered experience on the internet. So kick your feet up and grab a cold one. You have just entered the Man Cave. And now, here they are, winners of the self-proclaimed International Greatest Men Alive Award, Brad and Terry.
All right, thanks for joining us. I'm Brad.
And I am Terry. Welcome to the Man Cave. Hey, make sure to check us out online over
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and iTunes, and all the other
Google
things.
Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube. Off the cuff from Terry. But if you want the full no bullshit experience, the ability to win prizes, you're going to have to subscribe to us over on Patreon. We'll talk about that here in a minute.
What do we got to drink?
All right, we're switching seasons. Oktoberfest is officially out of the way. It's a sad day, but now we've moved on to Sam Adams Winter Lager. If you haven't noticed, Sam Adams is kind of my go-to for nothing too cheap like a Bud Light, but I do like Sam Adams because they rotate it around.
Yeah.
And sticking with a Winter Lager today. Brewed in old Boston, Massachusetts, home of the new World Series champions.
You know, I will say I enjoy this a little more than the Oktoberfest. I wouldn't say I hate the Oktoberfest,
Boo.
but I know that you feel the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
yeah, because I like a Winter Lager,
right.
But I love the Oktoberfest.
But I am a lager guy.
You are,
you know. But anyway, let's jump into this topic, right? And PTSD is kind of the main point of this, which we're going to branch into guns. But this all comes in the wake of the shooting in California, where it was an ex-Marine. He had serious PTSD problems. He probably legitimately did.
Well, one thing, too, I'd like to point out, with the news, is nobody's reviewed this guy's medical record.
Right.
And they're all going off the claims from the neighbors. So before it, I think a lot of people have jumped to conclusions because, you know, while this comes out on Saturday, we've recorded this, pre-recorded it. And, I mean, this thing has happened less than 24 hours ago.
Right.
But it's still real fresh. I do think the media is running with this with a lot of assumptions in there just to kind of get started with that point.
Right. And the whole thing makes me very nervous with the jumping to conclusions of things because there are a lot of misunderstood things about PTSD. And I'm not claiming to be an expert on the matter, but I know that it's not something that everybody in the military comes out with.
No.
And I think that's kind of a direction this might go in terms of the media trying to point at that and say, oh, well, all veterans have PTSD, and who knows where that can eventually lead us.
Yeah, because they have reported he did go to Afghanistan, but he was in the Marine Corps for, I think, 4 years or 5 years.
Yeah.
He was a corporal in the Marine Corps, which is an E4, not exactly a high-ranking guy.
But he did tours and deployments overseas in Afghanistan.
Yes.
So,
but that doesn't equate to the fact that everybody who went over to Afghanistan or Iraq is all coming back with PTSD.
Right. And the tough part here is PTSD is one of those things where all you got to do is say you have it.
Yeah,
and
they can't prove you don't.
Right, and it's one of those things that I think a lot of people jump to saying they have PTSD to kind of play a victim card when something trivial happens,
yes.
But they kind of make a mountain out of a molehill, and then they say they have PTSD. Don't get me wrong, it is a legitimate problem that some people have.
I think that's where we're going to catch the most amount of shit, is where people are going to claim we're trying to like almost undercut people in their feelings, and we're doing some kind of a disservice to some people who did go over or have legitimate PTSD issues that we're somehow saying that their problems are not real.
No, there are definitely a wide variety of things that can give a person PTSD, but I don't. Who's there to say that you have it or don't?
Yeah.
And I think that's the big issue with the whole thing, is that so many people can say that they have it and not really have it, and it kind of discredits those who actually do.
Yeah, and so if you're wondering, maybe you have PTSD and you want to know, there's no shit a checklist for you to go to. I have it right here. And the first question is...
Where's this from?
This is the Anxiety and Depression Association of America.
Okay.
Right? And they have created a quiz or a check sheet where you answer yes, no, and when you're done, you print it out and you take it to your doctor, and your doctor will diagnose you whether or not you have PTSD.
But what's to stop somebody from just putting whatever they want on
exactly.
there,
Well,
is there a legitimate diagnosis process?
I would imagine there's a diagnosis process for this, but I mean...
But as long as you stick to a story, and I sound like a dickhead.
Yeah, that's where we're going to catch the most shit. You can lie your way to it.
But I want to make it clear that I'm not discrediting anybody that may actually have this problem or does actually have this problem.
And we will be the first advocates to say that people who are claiming this with no actual, facts to back it up, discredit the people who actually have that.
Yeah.
They're doing a disservice to the people who are living this life with PTSD issues.
Yeah, they're doing it kind of in a pseudo fashion where not intentionally, but the end result is that.
Yeah. So the checklist. First question on the checklist. Yes, no. Have you experienced or witnessed a life-threatening event that caused intense fear, helplessness, or horror?
See, now I think that's kind of relative to what a person makes of an event. When I drove here, I could, driving is a dangerous thing. Anything can happen on the road. And
think about the kid who, what was it, a month or two ago out here, drove his McLaren the wrong way down the interstate.
Yeah.
Do you think that could have caused intense fear or horror to someone on the interstate? He didn't have to crash. He did crash into somebody, but if he didn't crash into you, does that constitute enough intense fear to check yes?
I mean, it would scare the shit out of me, but I wouldn't say I have PTSD over the whole thing.
But you could.
Yeah.
So, if you say yes, do you re-experience the event in at least one of the following ways, with repeated distressing memories or dreams, acting or feeling as if the event were happening again, like having a flashback or a sense of reliving it, or intense physical or emotional distress when you are exposed to things that remind you of the event?
So I do have kind of a personal example on that, and it goes back to there was a time where I was driving from Virginia to Florida. So it's a rather long drive, and I'm towards the end of it, and it's about 14 hours. And after you've been driving for that long, all you want to do is get off the road. And I'm in like the last hour, 2 hours of the drive, and I'm on a 2-lane road. So one lane's going one way, the other lane's going the other. And one guy was going really slow, so I go to pass him. And I did not see on the other side of him was another car going very fast in the opposite direction. But I was already next to this guy. So I had to really speed up and barely got in front of him. And I would say I came within a few feet of crashing at a very, very fast speed. And I don't pass anybody now because of that. But it was kind of like a life lesson. But at the same time, when I am driving, when I get that urge to pass somebody who's going slow, that moment does come back to me, but not in a
distressed memory.
Not in a distressed memory. It's almost like I learned my lesson,
Yeah. So, I mean, you could say that gave you an intense fear, and that if you did have repeated dreams or feeling as if, if you are feeling the urge to pass, maybe you're reliving the event again in your mind.
I have relived it in my mind.
Okay.
Yes.
You've so far you're batting 2-0.
Okay.
All right. So, do the reminders of the event affect you in at least 3 of the following ways?
We're going to stick with this event that I have.
Okay, let's do it.
And we'll see.
3 ways. You ready?
Yeah.
First way, avoiding thoughts, feelings, or conversations about it.
No, I just talked about it.
Avoiding activities and places or people who remind you of it.
No.
Yes, you do. You avoid the activity of passing.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't avoid the activity of driving, though.
Yeah, but you avoid the specific event.
True.
All right, 1. All right, the next one. Blanking on important parts of it.
No.
All right. Losing interest in significant activities of your life because you passed a car and almost died.
No.
All right. Feeling detached from other people.
Definitely not.
That's just, Tuesday for Terry.
Right.
Being detached. Feeling your range of emotions is restricted.
No.
Sensing that your future has shrunk. For example, you don't expect to have a career, marriage, children, or normal lifespan.
This event did not cause those thoughts.
You're telling me passing a car did not cause Terry to not be married?
No.
Or not have children?
No, other events have caused those thoughts, but
Not passing cars?
no.
Okay, so you only got one.
Okay.
But again, if I checked yes to a few of them and just backed it up with a story,
Yeah.
I'd be in there like swimwear. All right, are you troubled by at least two of the following? Problems sleeping.
No.
All right. Irritability or outburst of anger.
Sometimes, but not because of that.
But this doesn't have to do with the event. It just says, are you troubled by at least two of the following?
I get angry sometimes.
All right. Do you have problems concentrating?
No.
Feeling on guard?
Yes. All the time.
An exaggerated startle response?
No.
But you have one. It doesn't. Oh, you have to have at least two. You feel on guard and you have outbursts of anger.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I need to fill this out and print it out for you?
Maybe.
Maybe.
It
Thanks to your
looks
doctor.
like that. This event that happened like 4 years ago, maybe I didn't know I had.
Have you experienced changes in sleeping habits or eating habits? Sleeping or eating habits?
No.
You eat a lot.
I do eat a lot.
Do you feel sad or depressed?
No.
Or I should say, the question says, on more days than not. Disinterested in life?
No.
Worthless or guilty?
No.
During the last year, has the use of alcohol or drugs resulted in your failure to fulfill your responsibilities with work, school, or family?
I wouldn't say resulted in the failure to do anything with work, school, or family, but postponed those
Slowed down the next day.
Yeah, postponed those responsibilities.
Placed you in a dangerous situation, such as driving a car under the influence.
No, I do not drive drunk.
Yeah. Have they gotten you arrested?
No.
Or continued despite causing problems for you or your loved ones?
I have no loved ones.
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth. So yeah, after this point is where you would print it and take it to your healthcare professional.
So I do think that those are legitimate questions.
Yes.
When finding out if you are affected by PTSD, but I would love to see what happens after the fact when you take it to a medical professional and see the diagnosis aspect of the whole thing. I'd be very interested. But let's kind of shift gears from PTSD because I don't want to continue to go down this road. And before we shift gears, I want to make it very clear again that we're not being dickheads and discrediting anyone who says they have PTSD when
Absolutely.
Because we are very aware that it is a real thing that a lot of people struggle with.
I have a very close friend, not to keep beating the dead horse, a very close friend who was in Iraq in a security convoy that watched the armored vehicle, and it was an armored SUV right in front of him get blown up by an IED, and he would tell me, dude, if our car was going 5 miles an hour faster, that would have been on my car.
Right.
So he has, true PTSD. He had had problems sleeping at night. He had anger issues when he got home. And it's crazy because when you seen him at work, cool as the breeze, man.
Yeah.
One of my greatest mentors, when I knew him, but he had legit PTSD.
Yeah.
And I would never, ever, ever want to disservice, what he went through by trying to say that it was fake or anything like that. But I do have issues with some other people I've met who I look at them, they say, oh, I have PTSD, and I know that how?
Right. And that's, and not to play into the other hand, but we give an example of somebody in the service, but there are many other things that could cause it: sexual assault, domestic abuse, so many things.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears to the event that happened in California, and let's talk about the hot topic of the gun.
Yes, of course, because anytime there's a shooting, we always have to jump onto the gun train.
Right. And we haven't heard anything about it yet, about any kind of gun law reform or anything like that. I'm sure it's coming.
It is.
But it's been said before, especially in recent history when it comes to gun violence being done in America. And, we shouldn't make decisions on gun reform when we're in the wake of a national tragedy. We shouldn't, because it's all being done on emotion at that point. We don't want to make policy on emotion.
Yes. It's the law of, I call like 0 to 10 with emotion and rationality.
Right.
So if you don't understand how that works, if you are emotionally invested in something on a scale of 0 to 10, let's say you are emotionally invested in something at the level of a 10 right now.
Uh-huh.
Your ability to rationalize anything is at a 0.
Right.
It's a direct opposite.
Yeah.
So, but if you are emotionally detached from the situation, you are, let's in theory say somehow you are at a 0, you are your most capability to make a rational thought on the situation.
Right, but I do think a certain balance is required in that regard. I don't think, first of all, I don't think it's quite possible to be at a 0 emotionally when it comes to looking at a situation. But kind of moving on from the policy aspect of it, let's talk about gun ownership and what it means to own a gun. It is a right to own a gun, but that right comes with a huge responsibility. And I feel it's a responsibility that a lot of people don't really fulfill. And they never really learn the basics of handling, maintaining, or the safety required when using a firearm. And a perfect example of that is my parents recently bought a shotgun, and neither of them have ever really shot guns before. And when I went to visit them, I had them pull it out and pretty much asked them if they could take it apart or do anything with it, and they had no idea how to use it. And it shocked me, because how is it that you can own a gun and not know how to use it? What if you had to use it? They couldn't even pump it. So I feel like there's kind of a detachment between, okay, you can own a gun, it is your right, but I'm just going to own one and not know how to use it. I feel like that's kind of a recipe for disaster. Maybe not in an aspect of I'm going to use this gun improperly. It's a recipe for disaster of I'm not going to be able to use this gun at all. What if somebody,
when I need it?
Yeah, what if somebody breaks into my house and now I've presented a gun and that person that broke in had a gun? They're immediately going to shoot me.
Yeah.
So
if they know how to use theirs, maybe they're in the same boat and they have no clue how to frickin' use theirs.
Right. So I urge anybody who owns a gun or plans on owning a gun, or even if you're scared of guns, but you've never,
especially if you're scared,
but you don't own one, even if you don't plan on buying one, I think it would be a great experience for you to go to a gun safety class or a marksmanship class where a professional in a controlled environment teaches you how to shoot a gun. I think your experience, especially if you've never shot a gun or if you're opposed to guns, I think your experience going through that would enlighten you to firearms.
Yeah, it would definitely make you feel, once you understand how guns work, it will make you feel so much more comfortable. All right, because I think there's a lot of people out there who are going to say, "Oh, I'm kind of scared to carry.
Right.
What if it goes off on its own?"
Right.
Yeah. Well, if you follow a few safety rules, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
It can never. If you follow fundamental safety rules that are in place with weapons, you cannot have an accident. The only way you can have an accident with it is if you violate one of those rules.
Yes. And even with that, most guns themselves have some of them have 3-4 safety measures on the gun that don't allow it to go off until you want it to go off.
Yeah.
You can keep, all of your rounds in the magazine. You don't have to have one chambered.
No.
You can, with my 1911, for example, it has a safety lever. Like,
yeah,
if I don't push that safety lever down, I cannot shoot that gun.
Or some of the good ones. Now I believe it's now the name of them escapes me, but their safety is built into the grip. So
Right.
if it's just kind of laying,
My 1911 has that.
right? If it's just laying there and you go to pull the trigger, you can't do anything until it's the web of your hand hits that grip and
Right.
pushes it in. Is when you can finally fire the gun.
Right. So I think it's just that I hate to use the word ignorance because I don't want somebody to think that I'm calling them ignorant as a person, but you're ignorant on a subject possibly if you haven't been through a training class or you don't know how to use a firearm properly.
You're doing it a disservice if you're owning a firearm and you don't know how to properly use it.
And
Go get some training.
And you're also doing it a disservice if you don't own a firearm but want to say negative things about it and don't know how the firearms work.
Yeah. The one thing that I think we could make a real connection on is we kind of like, if we want to link these two topics together, as we kind of alluded to when we started the show, with PTSD and guns, a real scary thing that I would hate to see come down is they start getting to a point where they say maybe people who have PTSD shouldn't be allowed to carry a firearm or own a firearm at all.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing for me because, again, there's a ton of people out there who say they have PTSD. Are we going to say now that they can't, either A, they cannot own a firearm, or B, they do have PTSD as they leave the service, or, you know, I think we're kind of tailoring this a little bit more towards a military side of it.
Yeah.
They leave the service. They know they have emotional issues, but they don't want to say anything about it
Because they want to keep their guns.
because they don't want to lose their right to be able to keep their guns or later on buy another firearm.
Right.
So they just eat those emotions and keep them boiled down inside.
Which is the worst thing that they could do.
Absolutely worst thing is to sit there and eat your emotions when you're just going through a challenging time.
Yeah. But anyway, I think we've beat that dead horse enough.
Yeah.
Let's move into how terrible I did in football picks this week.
Oof.
Yeah.
You were doing so good.
Right. And my picks, I try to pick the good ones, the tougher ones, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And man, I was so off. The Cowboys lost by 14 points. And I picked them. I was banking on Ezekiel Elliott to perform, and I would have won my fantasy game if he did. So I lost another fantasy. It's been rough. I'm just hoping for a win this week. I don't care how it happens. And then the Steelers and Ravens, I mean, the Steelers pulled that one out. So, you know, it is what it is. All we can do is move on to my picks for this week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with the Monday night game,
Go for it.
and that is the New York Giants at the 49ers. This is a snoozer. We've got the 1-7 Giants at the 2-7 49ers.
Oof.
Yeah. And I'm not going to go too deep into this one. I think the 49ers are going to pull this one off only because they can run the football.
Okay.
And the Giants cannot run the football. Like they might as well not even have a running back on the field. And yeah.
Let's put another receiver in.
So the
Fuck a running
the
back.
Niners take it on Monday night, and then we have an afternoon game on Sunday. We have the Dolphins at the Packers, and the Dolphins are 5-4. Packers are 3-4, 3-4-1. But it's odd. If you look at the talent on the Miami Dolphins, it shouldn't work. It shouldn't. But the Dolphins are playing well.
Yeah.
And yeah, they don't have the best of records, but they're playing well for what they have. And on the flip side, the Packers, with the talent that they have, aren't playing as well as you would think. So I don't know what's going to happen here. But I'm going with my heart again,
Oh, I know who you're going with now.
and I'm picking the Dolphins over the Packers.
All right.
I'm going to do it. Even though everything on the statistics says the Packers should win this game, I'm picking the Dolphins.
Okay.
So those are my...
Don't worry. I got a heartfelt one coming up too.
Okay.
All right.
All right, let's hear it.
So I did a little better than you with my starting out.
I saw the highlights of the Duke game, and oh boy.
I mean, Well, not only did I get it right. Well, let's start with the Kansas Michigan State game. Let's just knock that one out.
Okay.
I got it right. Kansas won. They beat them by 5. It was competitive. I think it was honestly a little more competitive than I thought it was going to be for 1 versus 10.
Okay.
But still, yeah, Kansas won. Moving on to
Yeah.
holy A. Rub it in. I was right. Duke demolished Kentucky.
And Kentucky's the number 2 ranked team.
I'm telling you, that freshman class that Mike Krzyzewski brought in is just they're going to wreak havoc on the NCAA.
I mean, they beat the number 2 ranked team by almost 40 points.
34 points.
That's insane.
That's cupcake. That's what you get. Normally when you play Fort Wayne or something like that, you're going to beat them by 34, but you're not going to beat Kentucky by 34 on a neutral court.
And if watching the highlights, you would think it was a cupcake game. You really would.
Right. So R.J. Barrett had 33 points, Cam Reddish had 22, and Zion Williamson had 28 points. So 3 huge hitting guys, right?
And they're all freshmen.
Yes.
Insane.
The crazy part is, so the only way I can see Duke being stopped is you have to get one of those 3, or I would say 2 of those 3 guys in foul trouble early because they don't have much depth. So the other 2 starters only scored 13 points between the 2 of them. And then their bench only provided 22 points.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, you're looking at like 80% of the points come from these 3 dudes.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But once you have those 3 guys, they're as long as they keep it up, they're going to be unstoppable this year.
Oh, yeah.
And when you look at I think they should go number 1. They won't go number 1. They will not get to number 1 until
they beat number 1.
Yeah, I have to look over at their schedule. I want to say they might play Kansas, but they won't move up there until Kansas loses.
Yeah,
or the other teams lose. I just don't know if they're gonna I think they have the power to do it, but I just don't know if they'll throw them up to number 1, just because of that win.
I doubt it.
I think they'll slide into number 2 easily, because Kentucky was number 2.
Yeah.
So I think it's an easy lock for Duke to be able to move into the number 2 spot. Again, I just don't know if they're actually going to push them all the way up to number 1 for
I doubt
the rankings.
But I
think they if you put them up against Kansas, they're going to smash Kansas too.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good argument. Will it happen? Don't know. I'm not sure, but valid, very, very, very valid argument. So moving on to this week's picks. I got 2 games that are going to be on Wednesday, the 14th. I got number 19 Michigan playing number 9 Villanova.
Okay.
All right, so this is kind of my quick pick for the week. Villanova, the defending national champions, going up against a strong Michigan team, but Villanova is going to have home court advantage, and I still think they're just going to be a little too tough for Michigan.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with Villanova, number 9 Villanova at home. The next one I'm going with, 2 unranked teams, but I think it's the next best game that you're going to see probably this week, and it's Marquette at Indiana. Mm-hmm. So Marquette arguably could be number 2 in the SEC behind Villanova. And then Indiana is right around. A lot of people predicted Indiana to be in the top 25, and I think when you looked at the votes, I think they probably realistically would have ended up when you look at the vote count at the bottom of ESPN, they would have been right around a 27.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Indiana fan. I watched their game against, I think it was Chicago State last week. To me, didn't put on the strongest performance that I think they could. I think their starting 5 is small. Mm-hmm. They don't have much size. So guess who they play for the Big Ten ACC Challenge?
Who's that?
Who's got the biggest boy in basketball right now?
Duke.
They play Duke, and Indiana's biggest guy is maybe 180 pounds.
Oh boy!
So they're off by about 80, 90 pounds. I'm sorry, but freaking Zion Williamson's gonna crush them.
Yeah.
I love them, but they're going to get crushed. But back to this week, right? So I think Marquette has a solid defense heading into this season. It's headed up by a sophomore, Theo John, who's 6'9" and 240.
Okay.
But then again, that's another problem that Indiana's going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
Is they're outsized down low, right? And last season, he only averaged 4 points a game and 2.3 rebounds a game. But this first game, they played UMBC. If that name sounds familiar to you, UMBC was the first team ever last year to be a 16 seed that knocked off a number 1 seed in the tournament.
Damn.
Yeah. So Marquette put him down pretty solid and beat him by 16. But now Theo John scored 11 points and 10 rebounds. So he had a good double-double in there.
Yeah.
So I think he's just going to be a big problem for them to deal with, but I'm going with my heart. Indiana's at a home court. Assembly Hall has always been historically one of the top 5 hardest places for teams to play at, just because it doesn't matter how good Indiana is. It doesn't matter how terrible they are.
Yeah.
The home court crowd is always wild.
You know what both of us just did? We fell into that trap of being emotional and trying to make a rational decision.
Yep, I know. Yeah. I am emotionally invested at a 10, so rationale on this game is at a 0, but I'm going with IU at home. They're gonna pull something out.
Okay. We'll see what happens.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So hey, before we leave, I just want to give a shout out to some people. One, our Patreons, right? We got Lance, Alex, Rachel, Zach with a K, Zach with an H, Mark, Curtis, Martin J, Jeremy, and Rudamac. Again, this stuff couldn't be happening without you. And the second thing I want to put out, if you're listening to us and you've made it this far through, you probably like what you're hearing, so we need you to do something for us. I need you to go over on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. We don't accept anything less than a 5-star rating. Nothing less.
Because we are perfect, the greatest men alive.
Absolutely.
Self-proclaimed, but still.
Yeah. So go over on iTunes and Google Play and stuff like that. It helps the algorithms to be able to get us on the top page when you're looking for the Man Cave podcast, or even if you just type in Man Cave. We want to be the first thing people see. But that can't happen until we get enough people to give us reviews and give us some good rating reviews as well. So please head on over and give us those reviews. So we thanked our patrons. Man cards, they're only $1 right now. If you want to head over to Patreon for only $1, you're going to get entered to win. Also, the UKEG 64-ounce stainless steel growler. We're going to give that away, the podcast episode after Black Friday.
Yeah.
So only $1, you're going to get in to win this $140 fully pressurized growler. $5 a month, you're going to get in to win all the prizes. Get exclusive access to special podcasts like our After the Show ass that comes out on Hump Day.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing better than a piece of ass on Hump Day
to get you through the week.
You get exclusive access to tell us what you want us to talk about and give us feedback from the topics on every podcast. Hey, and before you go, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, the official Man Cave Podcast, over on Twitter at the Man Cave 14, on Instagram at the Man Cave Podcast, on YouTube. And hey, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay with us. We'll see you next time here in the Man Cave.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Any real man would follow us on Patreon for exclusive content and prizes at patreon.com/The Man Cave Podcast. The Man Cave. No safe spaces, no bullshit.